somebody walked into the room that I want to recognize. He was the person that founded our Family Business Center 28 years ago. Harry McNeely is a trustee emeritus at the University of St. Thomas, and he is here with us today, and I want to recognize his contributions to family business, not just starting our center 28 years ago, but family business in Minnesota and the wider region. So thank you, Harry. With that, I will turn it over to Rich Sorensen and our panel discussion for the day. Thank you for being here.
I'd like to welcome you here to this new location. Can you hear me okay? No? Can you hear me now? Okay, great. I'd like to welcome you here to this new location. It looks like you found your way. This is a beautiful room, a great, I think, great place to have this breakfast. And nice to be joined with a family that flew all the way from Italy to be here with us. I was talking to one family and they said, well, why don't we do the next breakfast in Italy? You know? yeah. So, at any rate, we get a flavor of Italy here this morning. As you know, I'm the academic director of the Family Business Center, and John is doing a great job of making this change occur. This morning, we're going to hear from the Bonomi family. Did I say that right?
Almost.
Okay. And I'd like to begin by having them introduce themselves, their names and what they do. So go ahead, Sandro.
Buongiorno. My name is Sandro Bonomi, and I'm CEO of the family company. And I've been joining the company when I was 19 after high school. And since then, I grew into the existing position.
Okay. Hi to everybody. I'm Luigi. I'm Sandro's son, sorry. And I'm doing the second year of university, and I'm majoring in aerospace engineering.
Hello everyone, I'm Silvio. I'm his cousin and Sandro's nephew. I'm doing sales for a US-German startup right now and loving it.
So neither one of these next generation folks works in the company now, but did you ever work in the company? Ever?
Okay.
Yet?
I did summer job
Okay.
like 2 years ago.
Uh-huh.
I went there. I stayed there for like 2 weeks, something like that. But also this last year, we back in Italy we bought some land, so they had to move. So I went there to help for a week. It was Christmas time.
Heavy lifter.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Great.
Well.
Yeah, I did some summer jobs as well at the company. It was mostly in the manufacturing process, just to get started. Very low-skilled tasks, but definitely very important to understand, how the products are made, for example.
Yeah, I think that most of the next generation people in this room can relate to that very well, so that's great. What I'd like to do is to begin by asking Sandro to share with us the ownership structure for the company and what the likely structure will be going forward.
Okay.
And you might start with your PowerPoint presentation here. That will help.
Yes, that's certainly a big help.
If it works.
It must.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, sorry. I'm not sure which way. Okay, this one. Okay, this is basically what we've done and what we do. Nowadays we manufacture brass ball valves. This is a 2-inch size. We go from 1/8 of an inch up to 4 inch. It's made of brass, and it's a shut-off device. So this is open with the flow going through, and then you turn the handle and it's closed. So very simple, but being simple, it's very competitive. And the difficulty of this product is that people expect it to work. And that's not always the case because you have a temperature range that goes from -40 up to, in Fahrenheit, maybe, I don't know, it's 170 Celsius, 450 Fahrenheit, thank you, John. And also pressure-wise, it can be vacuum and up to 600 PSI. Sometimes you have a mix of these parameters in the same application with gas maybe, and then things are a little bit difficult because not all the valves would actually close in those conditions. So it's a commodity, but we try to make it work in tough conditions, and because of that, it costs a little bit more, and we try to sell to the people that have the needs for such a product, not typically not a plumbing application. In this slide, you see also some old pictures of what my father started doing back in the 50s. He was making parts for the agriculture market, the Italian agriculture market, and he started in his canteen in the basement of his home. I still don't understand which way to go, sorry. And he changed the name of the, okay, this is going back. Thank you, John. Sorry for that.
Oh, that's right. You just give me the head nod.
Okay. Yes. So 1954, my father started the company. He was orphaned when he was 13. He's a 1933 young boy. And so when he turned 21, he started his own company with actually his brother at the time, who unfortunately passed away last year. And then through time, the company grew, and the names of the company also changed with that. And the new name, which our children approved for the future of the company, is Bonomi Industries, because they want to promote the family name, which makes me very proud. And also they want to expand to more than just valves. So the idea is to maintain the manufacturing heart of the company, but do more things. The world changes, and we have to change with it. This is an interesting picture of the 1800 building where my father first started when he was 13. So he started working in this building during World War II, actually, or just after that. And this was a mill, water mill, which transmitted the motion to machines, tooling machines, and it was very tough, as you can imagine. After that, maybe the next one, it's yes, you see on the right side is my father when he just started, and the guy on the left is his brother. And then the guy working on the lathe on the left is also my dad. And down below, when he moved to Brescia, because one thing I didn't mention is he started in a small valley in the Alps where he was born. And he moved, he's one of the first entrepreneurs from that town to move to Brescia, and he moved into 1958 or so. And the town where he was born, Lumezzane, has actually been on the cover of Time magazine a few years back because it was named as a very industrious town. Unfortunately, a few years later, after the Time magazine highlighted the town, there was a decline due to the crisis, the Lehman Brothers thing, and so on. But the town is still very busy now, but many of the entrepreneurs moved away like my father did. This, I call it the old-style training. Take your kids and get them with you wherever you do. And the one on top is my brother, Luciano, next to the company truck. And I'm the one below testing valves with water and playing around. This is the buildings of the company today. The one on the right is the plant in Italy. It's about 125 square feet. And we just bought last year the buildings on the left with the green land behind. So we are currently expanding the plant to double the size. And it's a plan that we expect to complete within the next 4 years. The building below is in Shakopee. It's our U.S. hub where John Schilander works. And we built it in 2015. And we have 15 employees here, not huge numbers, but this company actually distributes 1/3 of what we make in Italy. So it's a very important hub for us. This is the family. And again, maybe you can go to the next one. The circled ones are the people you have in front of you. So on top you have my father, my mother, which are still in good health and fighting each other, as always happens when the man retires. You have Luciano, my brother, on the left. The elder guy, of course, he's the old guy. Actually, he just turned to be a grandfather last month. Sarah, his first daughter, 30, and she lives in Berlin, married a Norwegian guy. It's a small word, guys. And they live in Berlin, work in Berlin, and who knows what they plan doing in the future, but so far they're having fun, and that's great. Serena is working in Switzerland, living on the Como Lake on the northern tip of Italy, and going to Switzerland every day takes about 1 hour because of traffic jams, and she's happy of doing what she does. She's working for a company that holds many of the fashion brands like Timberland and Napapiri and that sort of things. Silvio here, he's living in Wisconsin right now, but moving around the world also. He spent a month in South America this summer, and well, I'm sure you'll say much more about yourself. Sofia is the youngest of Luciano's kids, and she's studying psychology in Padova, about 1.5 hour drive from Brescia towards Venice. My family, you'll notice that we didn't include our wives there because they're not part of the family business. They are our wives. We love them, but they're not part of the business. Benedetta, my elder daughter, she studies law school, university, second year in Brescia, in town. Luigi, aerospace, shooting high. And Alessandro, my youngest, he's studying accounting. So a big variety of different things. A few numbers very quickly to give you an idea of the size of the business. One thing I didn't mention here, but I think it's interesting, we export 99.8% of what we make. So the global business sales is about $45 million. Of course, manufactured in Italy, exported to the US and sold through RUB Incorporated. We also have a subsidiary in Japan, started in 2007. And that's only a small part of the business, though. Japan is a very difficult market. Of these products, we make nearly 7 million every year, which means that we make some 40,000 pieces a day. Including the US facility, we have about 175 employees, 1,000 accounts spread over 70 countries. And we have our business plan is to grow sales into 2022 to 58 million. And to do that, we are investing more or less $18 million in the next 4 years.
So could you tell us about your ownership structure now and how it, kind of an overview of how it will look in the future?
Yes. My father started the manufacturing company, and within the company he owned the buildings, and basically it was just one entity in Italy. And RUB Inc. started in 1994. That was actually quite visionary from his side because at that time there were no other competitors having a subsidiary so far away. There were people having some branches in the UK or in Germany, but nobody in the States. And then RUB Japan started in 2007. My father retired last year, 84, last year, now 85. And it's been, as you probably can imagine, he's been saying, yes, I'm tired, I want to go home for about 10 years. And finally, he decided it was time for him to rest and fight with my mom. And so last year, we actually bought, that was sort of surprise for us. Maybe it's common here in the States, but we didn't expect that we had to pay for shares of the company after we've been working in the company for 40 years, but that was his decision. And so we're paying him, actually he's been generous because I must admit the value that he posed was a fraction of the actual value, but I think it's more a conceptual thing. And anyway, my brother Luciano and myself are now the owners. And last year we decided that it was time for us to prepare also the structure for the future of the company and the next generations. Because one important thing that we discussed and agreed was that no matter what, our children will become owners of the company, but they may not come in the company and work in the company. So there are two very separate paths. One is ownership, and the other one is working in the company. Working in the company, we set rules to get there. Because the concept behind it is the companies, the business represents the wealth of our family, so it has to be preserved. We cannot just bring in everybody and make everybody happy for 2 years and then the company crashes and, oh geez, what have we done? So that was a very basic, important concept that we all agreed about. So again, last year, sorry if I'm going back and forth. Last year we created Hadron. It's a weird name, but it's actually very small particles that they're trying to break in CERN in Switzerland. Very small particles that are very tight together. So the concept is, we are a small company, but we are very strong together. So that's the head company. My brother and I have 50% shares of that company, and so Hadron owns the majority of the two main fields, or the manufacturing arm, Bonomi Industries, and the real estate arm, Shadstone. Hadron owes 58% of each, and Luciano and I owe 24% each, which means that we have an option to pass shares to our children of the mother company, Hadron, or of the actual two business. And the idea is that the big decisions are taken at the Hadron level, but then the profits are shared at the lower level. So for people that will not come work in the business, they may have shares of the lower level companies, although it seems the other way around, but this is what we envisioned. And the people who will actually come work in the business and will guide the business will have shares of the mother company, because that's where the big decisions are taken. And then the Shadstone and Bonomi Industries owes 100% of the companies below.
Okay, realizing that this family business has owners both inside and outside the company, they embarked on a course of preparing the next generation of owners to be owners. And on your table, you'll see kind of a summary of some of the things that we gleaned from the Bonomi family about how they do things. We have some thoughts that brought them to an agreement. It summarized the family agreement. The purpose of the agreement is to safeguard ownership through time, and to set rules of agreement. And on the back of the page, you'll see how the agreement is managed. Now, as we go through this presentation today, you may want to just glance at this sheet and if you have questions or comments later on, you'll have an opportunity to talk about that. I'm kind of the academic representative on this this overall effort, and one of the things that there has not been a lot of research about is the way succession occurs. There's been some, but not a lot, about the way succession occurs in a family business. But there is an excellent book out there that I might refer you to. It's called Family Business: How to Be an Effective Shareholder, which kind of gives an overall perspective about how to be an active shareholder in the family business. Sandro, could you give us, tell us about your concerns and goals in terms of ownership, and give us an overview of the program that you developed and the resources you used?
Yeah, many concerns, of course, because running a business is difficult. Managing people, I think, is the toughest part. Our goals as parents is the happiness of our children. So to achieve that, we think that they don't have to be forced or to feel forced, even if we don't tell them you have to, but they don't have to feel they have to join the company or the family business, because that's what others expect. They have to do what they feel, what makes them happy. That is the main goal. And we think that because it took really a lot of efforts to be where we are today as far as the business, we think that it's important that that wealth is preserved. So to do that, we actually started to hire managers 3 years ago. Plant manager, sales manager, human resource, technical director, and so on. uh, roles that in the past my brother and I used to have on our shoulders. And I must admit it's difficult to manage people that have to manage your business, because when you do things, I don't know, you do it your way, but it seems so natural to you, and sometimes you don't feel like you have to explain or tell your manager that maybe you have to deliver on time, but maybe that's not so clear every day, and so you have to sit down and discuss. So managing people is really the toughest part. Making vows, it has become easy. I mean, we've been doing that for 40 years, and yeah, the game changes, new alloys and new rules, but that's not really the issue. The issue is really making sure that the people you delegate to does what you have in your head, and sometimes you don't realize what you have in your head until you try to tell it. So that's really the toughest part. But again, talking about the family business, we welcome our children to work in the company, but at the same time we have to make sure that if they choose to come work in the company, they don't destroy, or they make the right choices for the future, which not necessarily have to be the choices that we would make, but we want to see the business prosper. So there are some thoughts as written on this document. There are some thoughts behind the agreement that was signed. There was actually a 49-page document that was drawn with the aid of a consultant. This person does that all day long. He has helped other major Italian businesses create the path for the transition to the next generation. So he basically came in with a draft, and we said, yes, I like this, I don't like that, this needs to change. But yet it was a long journey, because, as you know, we are all caught by day-to-day things that we make. And with the addition of the new people, and with the plan of expansion, and many things going on all at the same time. What else? The scope of the agreement includes as I mentioned, our father, my brother, myself, and our 7 children. Which I must admit, this may be unpopular, but my father is an Italian all-time person, and in his mind, women didn't have to come work in the plant, which makes me think that there was another constraint actually as we grew up, because the fact that I didn't feel like I wanted to tell much to my wife when I was home, because then she would start saying, oh, come on, you can do this, and your brother cannot do that, But this actually created a problem, I think, because the result is that I didn't tell much about my kids when I went home at lunch, at dinner. So there was not much sharing of what was going on in the business. And if I could go back and change things, I would certainly change that. I would try to tell them more of what I do, what happens, because I think that what you heard, a couple of weeks here, a couple of weeks there, is not really enough for them to understand what the offer of working in the business is. So that's certainly an important lesson that I learned too late. But on the other hand, I'm very happy of the opportunity to draw this agreement with them because it has been an awesome time for us to think about our future, their future, and the opportunities that we all have together.
Well, given my experience, it seems like that your approach to communicating with your kids may be pretty common. Is that true? I mean, you don't talk a lot about the business around the dinner table, or maybe you do. At any rate, you decided that you needed to engage in some education of the next generation. And so, Luigi, when you first heard about this education program for the next generation, what did you think?
Well, it was kind of surprised because we started this journey like 2.5 years ago, and I think I was still in high school, so I still haven't, like at the time I didn't have a plan of my life, so it was, I think, a beautiful program to do because they started to talk about a lot of the company, and we were all together with me and my cousins, of course, my uncle and my dad. And it was actually a pleasant surprise because, as I said before, well, I'm still a kid, of course, but back then I didn't expect it that could be problems one day. Maybe, well, we never had any issues with, or my brothers, sister, or my cousins. So I never thought like we had to have rules to join the company one day. So when they told me, it was surprised, but actually it was kind of the best thing to do because they introduced me to, like, introduce me to join the company.
Made you think to
yes,
the future.
Yep, that's it.
Okay. So it was kind of a surprise, big learning experience.
Yep.
You know, my understanding is that in Italy, the norm is that you pass the business on to the next generation, and the next generation is expected to work in the family business, right?
Yeah, very seldomly you see companies being sold, and so there is this idea that either the new generation comes in and go ahead with the business, or sometimes it happens that the founder, stays in the business until he doesn't have the energies anymore, and then the business sort of dies away, which is a shame, because either way, there is no planning, and the outcome is not as good as it could be with the proper strategy. So I think it's really important to think ahead. That you always have to do certain things today, and at least what happens to me on the drive on the way to the office in the morning, I think, okay, today I have to do this and that and the other thing, and it's a long list, but when I get there, I'm caught by thousands of different things, so the main things that I wanted to do are not achieved, and that's really frustrating. That's frustrating, but
Well, I think that's pretty common among owners that they don't plan ahead in terms of ownership. They think, well, sometimes somehow that's going to occur, and but you took another path also. You said, well, you don't have to work in the business to be an owner. And Silvio, what was your reaction to that when you heard that you could be an owner but not work in the business?
Well, I mean, this was kind of a surprise as well because, my granddad has always had this idea, of course, if you want to be a shareholder of the company, you must be working in the company as well. And so in that way, you can share the profits of your work. Of course, we learned that it's not exactly that way, luckily or unfortunately. I think that was very important to set a certain, kind of rules to respect to enter the company, and also to understand, where we are in our career, if we ever want to enter in the family business and have a, of course, positive impact. What can we do and what position we can have within the company, which is, I would say, the thing I'm most happy about, because right now, before everything was, kind of an agreement, but without anything written down, so no precise set of rules. Right now we have, this family agreement, and as Luigi said, right now it's all clear. Right now we have, a path that we can follow if we ever decide to join the family business. My side of the family, I have 3 sisters. I am the third one, and the first 3 in the family are all working already. We are in other companies, but I believe that if myself and my sisters ever decide to join the family business, we can definitely bring on some learning experiences and skills, and even set of rules or organizational structure that we see successful in other business, and it can help lean the structure of the family business and move to the next level.
Okay. So actually, being an owner, even though you don't work in the business, gives you an opportunity to participate and be supportive. And so you started this education program. Mm-hmm. And so I want to get your take on how that program, what was your feeling about the program, Silvio?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I think first and foremost, from my personal experience, as Luigi mentioned, we never had, fights or contrasts between, my family or their family, and this is great. But it was very, very nice to get around and have yet another occasion to spend some time together. And, for myself, I think this was a great experience because it helped us, get closer to each other. And of course, it was very interesting to learn more about governance of a business. I did study some business administration at university, but seeing that applied specifically to, my family business, what my dad is always talking about when he comes back after work, and seeing that integrated in, the family company, was really interesting in a way that I could actually see what I had learned and what we were learning through this education program directly in the family business, directly in the day-to-day life of my dad and my uncle. Being an owner, of course, is completely different than being a manager, which is why being an owner, we don't have any set of rules. It is passed down generation to generation, but having this set of rules, as I mentioned, that allows you to have a precise path to one day, start working in the company, and if you have the skills and the capacity to become a manager, and of course, if there is no other better person that can do that outside of you, become a manager in the company, is definitely important to preserve the wealth of the family business and, keep growing the company as my granddad started and my uncle and dad successfully, I would say, keep doing every day.
Yeah, Luigi, when you first joined this educational effort, what were your reactions? How was that for you?
Well, it was kind of awesome because we could see each other. It was like Christmas, but was not in December, actually. And we didn't have present when we studied something like laws of the company, but it was a pleasant surprise, as I said before. And I think that helped us a lot to
Get closer.
get closer again. Okay. We always get close, but there all lives. Well, right now he's living in Wisconsin, but the other cousins, one is living in Berlin, and the other one in almost in Switzerland. So we never see each other. Mm-hmm. So it was pretty good to see each other again.
Okay, so when you were in this education program, you're still in it, right?
Yeah.
How often did you meet? How long did you meet? What was it like?
Okay, so as I said before, we started 2.5 years ago.
Uh-huh.
And we met in the summer. They came with this first draft of the agreement. And after that, we saw each other after 6 months, I guess, maybe a little bit more. And we talked a lot of agreement. They explained it to us. And after that, we saw each other other 2 times. And
Yeah, forgive me, Luigi. Two things. We first met to discuss and draw the agreement, and that was started 2.5 years ago, and took a while because the agreement was signed in July 2017. And after that, the training program started.
Yeah.
So the training program was 8 days, basically, and in those 8 days, we touched governance, like Silvio mentioned, and finance. And one interesting thing that was done was to compare our figures with those of our main competitors, which is something that we don't do every day, but it was interesting to share the information with the children. And reading statements and notes around the statements, we discussed how our competitors approach our business. Some maybe buy more finished products than we do, and you can judge that by the number of employees. Others have a different range of products, and others don't export. So many different strategies that we went over and discussed, and it helped us also to refocus on what we really want to do of our future. And in those sessions, the idea of adding actuation to these manual valves was set. And as a result, from February this year, we have an engineer that is product manager to develop this new business for us. So very helpful.
It sounds like a lot happened. One of them was building closer relationships across families, and coming to a common understanding of maybe more of an understanding about what the business is about, right? Is there anything else that really struck you as being an important part of this program, Luigi or Silvio?
The idea of own the business one day, maybe?
well, that's, of course, a thing that we discussed.
Yes, but maybe with this program, you visualized you become the owner one day. While before that, it was just, a random thought.
Okay, so after all these meetings, I kind of got an idea of what I'm going to do. So right now, as I said before, I'm doing aerospace engineering. So it's not totally connected, but it's still engineering. So as one of the family rules is to get a major in business to work in the company. So I'm willing to do that, but before that I want to do my path, want to do my thing before getting to work in the company, so I can bring something new, something that maybe they don't have, a different view of how they work. So that's kind of the idea, or something like my idea after doing all these meetings. And yeah, probably I hope so to be an owner one day, but I will willing to do that just if there is a right spot for me in the company, because if there isn't, I'm not going to do that because maybe they don't need me, maybe I got different experience in my life, so it's actually up to the future or what I'm going to do. So.
Yeah, we're still confused. You will be owner one day.
yeah, sorry. I misspoken, but I hope you get what I want to say, so I'm sorry.
Okay, can either one of you, Silvio or Luigi, share with us specific items that you learned that impressed you during this education process?
The professor was peculiar, wasn't it?
Yeah, we got this professor from Milan,
University.
who is pretty good. Actually, it helped me because I got a class of economics. So doing these meetings, it helps me to pass that class, actually. So he talked about a lot of his personal experience, and also we saw a lot of statement of of our company and the others. And a great lesson was how to spend money of the company, that you have to invest to have a future, because if you're not investing, you got nothing. You're going to stay in that point. If you want to move forward, you have to invest, but invest right. Like you don't want to waste money on stuff that you don't need. So that's kind of one of the lessons that got me.
Yeah.
If I may, actually, sorry, Silvio. My brother also didn't go to the university. I did accounting in high school, and he did mechanics in high school. After these training sessions, which were actually designed for the children only, but we decided we want to share with them because it was a good opportunity for us to stay with them. And my brother said, you know, now I finally understand the statement, and before I didn't. So it's good to go over some basics, concepts sometimes, because again, in your day-to-day business, you don't take the time to study how a statement is built. Sorry.
You have anything to add to that, Silvio?
Sorry, what?
Anything to add to what was said here?
Yeah, coming back to Luigi's point that he mentioned before, having the this approach from an external consultant, I think it was, you know, the major turning point for me, especially because, you know, this consultant, although a bit of a strange person, but he made the trainings really, really fun and really interesting. But besides from that point, we have a great relationship right now, and every once in a while, we have the opportunity to either have a meeting all together, all the family, or, you know, since most of the times I cannot be there, we can have like a Skype call or whatever that is. And he's actually also my own consultant, basically. Of course, you know, I'm not gonna tell him, you know, I have this business idea and give him a business plan or whatever, but it's mostly about the direction of my life and, you know, what I'm doing now. I'm passionate about my company, my work, and, you know, I want to stay in the US a bit longer because, you know, my heart took me there. But this guy is basically helping me figuring out what are the correct steps. He's not telling me what to do. He's helping me analyzing that from an external point of view. That, of course, you know, I always try to consult with my dad, but it is completely different. Having someone external to your family and to the company that has no interest besides your own personal best interest is really helping me, myself, really much, really a lot.
I'm curious, I'm a professor, so I wonder this, but has learning more about your company and ownership changed the way you look at education? Is that helped you in your education?
I think so. I mean, as I mentioned before, I did study, you know, business administration, and I had to read and do an exam about, you know, financial statements and governance, which, you know, I was not really passionate about. But seeing that applied to, you know, something that my dad has worked for, you know, basically his whole life, has definitely changed my overview about these topics. They are not just boring and useless, they're actually super interesting, and they help you understand what are the values and the mission behind a company and what drives most entrepreneurs and businesses. So definitely, I mean, this is something that completely changed. Unfortunately, I had just finished my university, so I could not go back and repeat my exam. but still, I think, you know, for everything that I had learned, I still have some notes, especially from this consultant who was really able to make you passionate about things, not only on a theoretical level, but, you know, applying that to something that you see every day through, you know, your dad's eyes or your uncle's eyes, makes you really passionate about it. So I think that it did really change, you know, my overview about some topics of my education. If I could go back, of course, I would like to start this path a bit before or delay my exams at university to take better grades.
And Luigi,
Yep.
in aerospace engineering studies, do you think about valves in spaceships now, or?
Yeah, it would be a great idea to have
Valves
root
in
valves in space. Wow, that's not a bad idea. Maybe when I will finish my studies, I will go back to the company. I will say, okay, now we're doing space valves. Could be a great idea. We're gonna internship with NASA. It's gonna be awesome.
We'll try, we'll try.
No, it's already set.
Okay, all right.
Okay. Sandro, as you started this education program, what were some of the major things that you wanted to get out, have happen as a result of it?
As I mentioned, I didn't talk much about the business at home, so it was important for me to share with my children what my father, Luciano, and I had built, and share with them what we had in mind for the future of the company, and make sure that they felt that they could choose whatever they wanted. They could become painters, doctors, you know, selling flowers, doesn't matter. But one day they will have the responsibility of all that business that feeds 100 and plus families. And being an owner is not just, okay, at the end of the year I get some money. Being an owner has responsibilities, and they have to realize that they have to make the right decisions to make the business prosper and grow. And I think we are on the right path. Maybe you know, we have to repeat the concepts every now and then. Actually, one thought I had in preparing for today's session was that I need to read again the document, the 49 pages document that we signed, because those are concepts that we agreed to, but sometimes those concepts are not something you have ahead of you every day. But we should, because that's what we decided for our future. So we need to keep in mind that there is not just the order or the quotation or the chamfer on the thread that needs to be taken care of, but there are also these longer term things.
Sandro, out of that 49-page agreement, what did you think were the most important parts of the agreement? If you had to choose just two or three.
The most important thing is the differentiation between ownership and managing the company. These are two different roles, and I think the document outlines this very clearly. So it's important that our children know which one they have to choose. Ownership is not something they choose, it's going to come, but the other one they can choose to follow or not follow, and they will have our support anyway. Other things important, I think, is for the peace of the family is, and maybe not everybody shares the same idea, but I think it's important that there is a very sharp cut between the family and business, meaning, I love my wife, but I think that if she were to come work in the plant, our relationship would not be the same. And I'm saying that because I see that happened with my father and my brother. Every time we meet outside the business, it's business talk. Very seldomly we talk about other things, and it's a shame because you lose brotherhood, at least to some extent. It's great to have your brother in the business because there is 1000% trust. Whatever he does, I fully support, although sometimes we disagree, but we talk and we clarify. But at the end of the day, he takes care of areas of the business and I take care of others. And we couldn't, one of us couldn't run the business the way we run it together because there is no more than 24 hours in a day, unfortunately.
Yeah. Okay, and it seems to me that you've also made clear the boundaries between ownership and business leadership. That although they become owners, they can't interfere in management in the business. Is that right?
Yes. The owners, as you know, owners appoint the board of directors. Once you've appointed the board of directors, they run the company. And you as an owner, although you may disagree on certain choices, you have to follow the rules. So the steps in running the role of owner are also as important as those of running the business every day, because you're looking at the longer term happenings of the company.
So let's move on to another topic, and that is family ownership meetings. I assume that you have family ownership meetings, is that right? What are these? I understand that these are fairly structured meetings, is that correct? Well, Silvio, could you talk about the nature of the structure in those meetings and what difference it makes?
Yeah, so, these meetings were set out during our, in our family agreement. And I think that most importantly, we have a family assembly, family meeting twice a year, so once every more or less 6 months. And this is really important to really understand, myself, that I'm not in the business, how the business is going, how the business is doing. Especially because, right now I'm not living at home. When I speak with my dad or, in general with my family, it's not something that happens very frequently, so I'd rather speak, about how we're doing instead of how the details of the financial business, how the key indicators are going. So having a family assembly dedicated specifically to that, plus, having the chance to spend some more time with my cousins, is really something important to understand exactly how the family business is doing, where it's going. They mentioned before that they acquired a land next to the production plant in Italy. So, of course, before it was like, okay, have you ever, do you remember that area over there? Yeah, of course I remember. Well, we managed to buy that, and now we have this expansion project. It was just, something that was mentioned, but during these assemblies, we can really understand the financials besides these types of operation. And as Luigi very importantly mentioned before, there are, of course, the business is made to earn some money, hopefully. And it's very important, as my granddad and my uncle and dad have been doing for the past years, to really understand where to allocate those financial, that capital, to keep growing the business. Because, the objective is not to pocket the money. The objective is to grow the wealth of the family. And during these assemblies, and thanks to our learnings, I believe that we have a broader, but at the same time, deeper understanding of the direction of the business and the other entrepreneurial activities that, the family wants to undertake.
Luigi, what did you like about these family meetings? And if you could, what would you do differently?
Okay, so of course I like that we were all together, as I already said before. But also I learned a lot. Actually, they were structured pretty good. So usually there was this guy who came and just started to, well, excuse me, you're saying the family meeting of the before signing the family agreement?
No,
or-
no, the 6-month
Oh,
family meetings, yeah.
Okay. So we still haven't done. Well,
Yes.
we did
We've
one.
done one,
We've
yes.
done once. Actually, we were all together, and they just like talk about the company. Is when we saw this statement, and actually the structure like. We are here, everybody listening. Of course, they're talking, and we
Yeah,
ask
the
questions.
assembly
here.
actually went into more detail than, the training sessions. We had our CFO presenting the figures of the different companies and the consolidated numbers. And we had a chance also to review in detail the business plan. Plus, we've discussed also some aspects of how to finance the new investments. So it was a good time to, I guess, help also the next generation understand different options that business managers have to confront with, and why you choose certain things rather than others.
Sandro, you've been just launched into these meetings and so forth, but given what you've seen so far, how do you feel about the learning that will occur in the next generation and their ability to make good decisions in the future?
I was actually very well impressed by the discussions we had with the children, because they bring experiences from their current job, and we grew in a mechanical world. We have a machine shop basically, and although we have always invested a lot in automation and IT, but the concepts that some of the companies Silvio, Serena, and Sarah work with have totally different approach than ours. So that was really very interesting. It helped open new ideas, which we have not yet implemented, but they are on the table, and I think that with their support, we can put in place and use. So very useful.
So you found it helpful
Yes.
and helping your business to become better, perhaps, in the future.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, one of the things was also this idea to automate the valves. It's probably something that we had in the back of our mind for some time, but we didn't really realize the importance to move ahead in this project. So after one of the discussions with the kids, sorry if I keep saying kids, but after this, we actually, as I mentioned, hired a project manager to help us go into this new business.
You probably thought, as you considered automating this, we need an aerospace engineer to do this.
Definitely.
Something like that. Okay. We now would like to make a transition to questions from the audience. As you think about questions, you may want to look at the sheet that's on your table, or just have any questions for this family today. What are your questions? You can stand up, raise your hand, and a microphone will come over to you. Here comes the microphone right here.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you for being here. The 8-day session, was that a package or who designed that for the training?
The consultant, based on his experience with other families, proposed that these 8 days as a good investment to go through the basics of how the statement is built, and then go through all the steps to reach at the end this comparison of our numbers with those of the competitors. It was split into 4 sets, 2 days each. This was important because we have people living abroad, so we didn't want to have them come in for half-a-day sessions only. And it's been very useful. We have been able to share from real figures and also use their thoughts to go deeper where things were not clear. And as Silvio and Luigi mentioned, the guy was really sort of an actor. He knew how to attract and keep attention, so it was really good. We've enjoyed it and learned a lot.
Other questions? There's one back here.
Maybe I can answer one of the questions everybody has in mind. The Italian food in the U.S. is not the same as it is in Italy. You have to come to Italy.
Santos, you said that when your father decided to retire,
Yes.
and he said that he expected you and your brother now to buy the company, that was a surprise to you.
Yes.
What did you do? Because obviously you hadn't been planning for it. What did you and your brother do, or what plans did you make to pay for the business? And then my second question, which is not as important, is can you give us just I'm just curious, is now that you have a U.S. operation, what are the differences between operating in the U.S. and operating in Italy?
Okay. We've been supported by smart consultants, I would think, because at the end, Luciano and I are not paying 1 penny out of our pockets, but the way it was structured, it's the company that pays our father. So that was a good way, because one of the concepts, one of the decisions my father has always been very strong about, number one, actually more than one. Number one is pay the least taxes you can. That doesn't mean fraud, but invest money so that you have costs, and buy new machines, and spend on things that will reduce your tax rate. And the other thing was the money the company makes has to stay in the company. As a result of that, personally, we don't have that much money as other people may have after working 40 years. So it would have been a problem if we had to pay cash for ourselves, but that was solved in a good way. The difference between Italian and U.S. operations, it's probably the same difference that you would expect culturally. In the U.S., everything is now. In Italy, we tend to be more I don't want to say take it easy. It's not take it easy, but think about and take your time to make sure you do the right decision. And I think John can agree with that, right? We're not very fast in making decisions.
Other questions? Yeah, here's one.
Good morning. Out of all the places you could have chosen in the U.S., why did you pick Shakopee, Minnesota?
My father started making the ball valves, and that was a very smart decision because the agriculture part that he started making back in the late 50s were only going into Italy. So a very closed market and no chances to grow. He chose to make the ball valves because he realized that this product would have been worldwide product, and he was perfectly right. The other thing was he chose to start making valves for other countries. He didn't go and sell to the shop next door or the chain with the headquarters in Milan like all of our competitors did. He started to sell these products right away in Germany, in the UK, in France, in Scandinavia, and soon after in the States and Japan and Australia. So we had contacts in the States. We had a couple of large accounts, one of which is represented here today. In Minneapolis, we had a customer, through time, this customer closed, and the former director of this company became a consultant. So we talked to him, and he convinced us that it was a good thing for us to start a company in the United States. And because he was living here, we chose to start the operation here. We actually had the warehousing at the beginning in Massachusetts, and in 2006, we moved the warehouse material. It was a leased space in Massachusetts, so we moved the material here to Shakopee because we ran a survey, and we decided that Shakopee was a good location. It was a suburb, but not too far away from the city, a developing area, which turned out to be a very fast-growing area. So in 2006, we actually moved into a leased space with the office and the warehousing under the same roof. And then in 2014, we bought land, 5 acres on the highway, and built the building you've seen in 2015.
I have a question for you. Are these different operations in different locations? Is part of the purpose for that to provide opportunities for more family members to work in the business?
Yeah, certainly. The size of our business is an issue. 7 people running one shop is not really a good idea. And having the opportunity to manage the 2 subsidiaries, the 2 operational subsidiaries abroad is certainly very positive, as well as that's one of the reasons why we split the real estate side from the operational side, and we created this Shedstone Corporation, which in our mindset that doesn't really, in the long run, it doesn't have to manage only the buildings that we use to manufacture valves, but it has to do its own investments and grow. We live in a very nice touristic area, so there are opportunities for growth in real estate.
It's a great answer. I have one burning question. How have you enjoyed the winters in Minnesota?
I tend to come in the summer. But no, I've been here with minus 25 or something, and visiting is okay. I can withstand visiting. Living is different.
Oh, okay. We've got one more question here.
Silvio, you mentioned a board. Do you have outside board members on this board?
We are just making contacts with a person to come and join us in the board because, 50-50 is good as long as you agree, but when you disagree, things may get difficult. So, yeah, that's one thing that we are working on, and of course, it's a sensitive issue because you share all the information with this person, but we are actually the thought or the way we identified the person is Luciano and I thought about what we see as the major problems we face today, and we put human resources on top of the list. Innovation was next. So we've been lucky to be able to join forces, or at least start talking with a person that in 10 years grew a temp agency from 4 million euro to over 300 million euro, sorry. So we think he can give us some good hints on how to manage people.
Changing subjects, your father's model of having you buy the company, will that be repeated, transferring the ownership to the second generation?
I hope not.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't have the answer to that. We actually haven't thought about that. My brother has given, no toll, I guess, maybe €1, no, has given bare ownership of Hadron to his 4 children. So today he has full ownership of 10% of that company, and bare ownership of that company resides on the 4 kids. I have not made that choice yet because my youngest is still 16 and a half, and I think it's premature. But not necessarily, let's put it that way, not necessarily.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bonami family, for being here with us today.
Thank you, guys.